Hi everyone, my name is Payal. Welcome to my presentation about understanding and applying the early learning framework. So, throughout this presentation, we will explore the core components of EYLF, examining its visions, principles, and practices. We will also look at how this framework not only guides our work with children and also shapes our professional identity as an early childhood educators. So, as at the heart of the early learning framework is a powerful vision for children's lives, encapsulated in three key concepts: belonging, being, and becoming. So let's start with belonging. This is the foundation for everything else. Children thrive when they experience secure, respectful, and reciprocal relationships. It's about knowing where and with whom they belong within their families, their connections, their culture, and their connections to the country. This sense of belonging gives children the confidence to explore the learn. Next, we have being. This is about valuing the present moment and recognize that children's childhood is not about just for preparation for the future. It's about celebrating the here and now, the play and the joy, the discovery and the meaningful experiences children have every single day. Children are seen as active participants in their life right now, not just passive recipients for teaching. Finally, we have becoming. Becoming reflects the ongoing growth and changes in the children experiences. It acknowledges that they are consistently developing their identities, knowledge, skill, and relationships. Underpinning all of the key principles that children are capable, competent, and active participants in their own learning. This is a fundamental shift in how we view and work with young children. The third slide is about pedagogy. So, this leads us to the concept of pedagogy, which is essentially the how of teaching. It's the practice and method of teaching informed by both theory and our practical experience. Within the EYLF, educators are positioned as intentional teachers. This doesn't mean we are simply instructing, instead, we are actively promoting learning through both a while and challenging experiences. Our teaching is intentional when it is deliberate, purposeful, and thoughtful. Every interaction, every environment we set up, and every experience we plan is done with a clear educational purpose in our mind. There is always a goal. This moves us beyond just supervising to actively engaging with children is learning. And next is about professional identity. The EYLF plays a crucial role in shaping our professional identity. Professional identity is about how we, as members of the early childhood profession, define ourselves and to others. The framework provides us with an unfined language which makes our complex work more visible and helps contribute to our professional recognition. It positions educators as co learners who scaffold children's learning. This idea of scaffolding comes from Vygotsky John of proximal development, where we support children to achieve a little more than they could on their own. Importantly, the EYLF moves educator beyond a simple facilitator role. It positions us in an active, engaged role as an intentional teacher. This helps us to articulate our practice and decision making with confidence. Next is about principle 1, 2, and 3. So let's examine the key principles that guide our practices. First is secure, respectful, and reciprocal relationship. This is the foundation for a child's sense of belonging and well being. As educators, we actively work to build trusting relationships with both children and their families. Second is about high acceptations and equity. This is about believing that every child, regardless of their backgrounds of ability, can achieve success. It requires us to challenge deficit discourse, the limiting assumptions we might sometimes hold about a child's potential, and instead focus on what they can do. Um, and the fourth principle is about respect for diversity. We must actively value the culture, linguistic, and social identities of all children and families. This includes particular recognition of Aboriginal Torres Strait Torres Islanders culture and their job and important connection of country. The fifth one is ongoing learning and reflective practices. This is fundamental to our professionalism. It requires us to continually examine how our own practice, question assumptions, and commitments um, to professional growth. It's through this critical self regulation that we improve and ensure our practices is always responsive to the children in our care. Next is about principle of the EYLF. So there are 8 core practices. Uh, we practice holistic approach, considering children learning development and well-being are interconnected. Then responsiveness to children means being attuned to their interest and strengths. We also know that learning through play is a primary context where children explore and make meanings. This is why we use intentional teaching, making purposeful decisions to extend learning. We create rich learning environment that support engagement and discovery. And then cultural competence is not just a checkbox, it's about deeply honoring the diverse background of the children and families. We support continuity of learning and transitions, ensuring a smooth journey of children. And finally, our practice of assessment for learning helps us just understand each child's progress of the plan for their next steps. Um, then we have our learning outcomes. So the learning outcomes are the key goals we aim for. They describe we know skills and dispositions we hope to see children's development. The next one is critical reflection and learning outcomes. So it's crucial to reflect critically on these outcomes. They are not a checklist to be completed. Instead, they are holistic goals to recognize each child's unique journey. And we must avoid schoolification, reducing assessment to deficit-based checklist. So children's learning is complex and cannot be reduced to a few miserable indicators. So we should use the outcomes as lenses to recognize and celebrate each child's individual strength and progress. This is where our professional judgment is essential in interpreting and applying the outcome meaningfully. And the next slide is about the 5 stages of planning cycle, my personal favorite. So the EYLF provides us with alignment cycle to guide our intentional teaching. It consists of 5 stages: observation, assessment, planning, implementation, and evaluation. This is a continuous cycling process, not a linear one. Each stage informs for next, and this cycle repeat over and over again. It is always responsive to children's interest and needs, collaborative and reflective. The first one is observation, which involves carefully watching and listening to children to gather information about their learning and development. This is a raw data that inform our understandings. The next one is assessment. During assessment, we analyze our observations to understand the child's learning. We identify their strengths, interest, and areas of growth. It's about making sense of the observations, often in relation to the learning outcome. This is assessment for learning, not just for learning. The third is planning. Next, planning is where we use our assessment to decide on the intentional strategies and experiences we will provide to extend the child's learning. Then we implement it. Then implementation is where we put plans into action. This involves setting up the learning environment, engaging in intentional teaching, and scaffolding children's learning. Crucially, we must be responsive to engaging interest and documents children's learning as it happens. Finally is evaluation, is where we critically reflect on what we have done. Did our plan work? Did we extend the child's learning? This stage informs the next observation, and the cycle begins again. And to conclude, the EYLF provides a shared language and elevates our status and support us in articulate our practices. It is also deeply aligned with ethical principles like respect for children's rights, commitments to equity, and professionalism integrity. When making ethical decisions, we are guided by our professional judgments, informed by the EYLF principles, our knowledge of child development, and collaborative with families and cliques. So, in summary, the EYLF vision of belonging, being, and becoming positions children as capable and competent learners. The principles and practices guide us in creating inclusive, respectful, and holistic learning environments. The planning cycle provide a framework and for responsive and reflective teaching, and the EYLF not a prescriptive checklist but a guide for thoughtful, responsive, and reflective practices that truly honors a children's voice, strength, and identities. Thank you for listening.